super excited that you guys are here. If you are watching, we are so excited. I am going to jump right into this vital topic that we are talking about today. Today, we are talking about administrative do's and don'ts in children's ministry. And I am so excited that we have the most amazing panel on the planet. Super honored that these are not just women, they're not just experts, they're not just gurus. Yes, they're all of those things, but they are also my friends. I love it, you guys, when I have webinars with legit friends on here. So we are going to have a laid back time tonight. I don't know what brought you here, but listen, check this out. If you have a question, we want to make sure that you get exactly what you came for. So if you have a question this evening, whether you're watching now or whether maybe you're watching this later, go ahead and put it in the chat box, and we're going to do our best to get to those questions towards the end and throughout the week, because we want to make sure that you are able to grow in your spirit of excellence when it comes to reaching children and families for Christ. But we're going to jump right into this. Okay, so for the people out there, one, I have to make a quick joke, you guys. So we were making jokes about what we wear, and I was pointing out that I have on pajama pants right now, and then everyone else. Yes.
The beauty of virtual, right?
Yes.
Yes.
So this is a laid back environment. So, if you want to recommend this to somebody or watch it later, let them know that they can come in their PJs and they are welcome in this place. Okay. So, hey, just really quickly. Yes, PJs are super cool. I love it. I love it. Hey, you guys, put in the chat box. Tell us where you are from. Comment. Let us know. We care about where you're from. Really quickly, as you are doing that, Debbie, I'm going to start with you, Cynthia, and then Brittany. For anybody who's watching who may not know how incredibly amazing you ladies are, even though you're super humble. What's up, Morgantown, West Virginia, Fairmont, San Diego's in the house. This is a lot of multitasking that I'm doing, right? California, Catherine, I did not see you at MegaCon, okay? So I'm gonna need for you to make sure you get that ticket. Arkansas is in the house. South Carolina is in the house. Huntsville, Alabama is in the. We got the Bahamas in the house, you guys. Super excited that you guys are here. Canada is in the house. We are so excited that you guys are here. We are here for you guys. Gonna make me excited. Houston, Texas is in the house. I'm gonna be quiet right now. And Debbie, I'm gonna let you tell us how amazing you are. What's up, San Antonio, Texas?
How amazing. Oh, wow. Well, my name is Debbie Rhodes, as you can see on the screen. I am the Children's Ministry Director at Grace Chapel in Franklin, Tennessee. I have been in kids ministry specifically for about 20 years, but altogether ministry over 30. So the do's and don'ts, I know a lot of the don'ts. I can tell you for sure what not to do. Yeah. Totally tell you that for sure.
Right? Is that not how we have all grown? I love that. I mean, if you meet Debbie, seriously, and you guys know, if you meet a leader who is like, I'm a self-proclaimed expert and I have never made a mistake, they're a liar. Okay.
I have made so many mistakes. So yeah, I will tell you all about them too. All of them. Yes.
All right, Cynthia, tell us a little bit about you.
I'm Cynthia Dixon, and I am the Children's Director at Oak Cliff Bible Fellowship here in the wonderful, great state of Texas, Dallas. And I've been in children's ministry about 25 years, and in ministry a little bit longer. And I can tell you my goal is to help you not hit all the landmines that I hit and got blown up. Because I've been blown up quite a few times. And that, yes, walked away and looked and says, That's a rough one. So do's and don'ts. I hope I can help you with some do's, but I can sure tell you about a lot of don't do.
Awesome. Brittany.
Yeah. Hey, my name is Brittany Nelson. I am the creator of Deeper Kidmin, which is an online hub of creative resources made for children's ministry leaders by children's ministry leaders. And so my whole goal is to equip you with the resources and training that you need to be a rock star for the kids and families that you serve. So I'm super excited to talk about administration. It's one of my spiritual gifts, and I get really nerdy about it. So I'm like super excited to be here tonight. And like everyone else, I've got a lot of mistakes that I've made, and excited just to talk and to share experiences about this whole idea of administration.
I love that, to share experiences, right? Because in essence, that is how we grow, by sharing experience. Someone is succeeding where we're failing, and that is why we are stronger together. That's why we have to come together and grow with each other, and that is why we are here tonight. You guys, listen, we are not self-proclaimed experts. So if you have something on your heart, please, if you've had an experience, don't be shy. We want to hear about it as we're talking. Share that in the chat box so that we can share that with others. But I want to jump right into this conversation. Ladies, I want to know, because some of us may have different definitions of administration. It was so funny because Debbie was just texting me. She's like, okay, wait a second. I have a couple of different definitions. Which one do you mean? I'm like, Debbie, I mean all of them. So when you think of administration, when it comes to children's ministry, what do we mean? What does that mean to you? Cynthia, I'm going to let you start.
Now, why did I know you were going to do that, Esther? Well, for me, for administration, I'm thinking of organization and order. Mm-hmm. And so oftentimes we as people in ministry, we say, oh, we're going to preach to God's word and Jesus Christ, and we're just about to go to emotions, and our kids, get to know our faith, but we have no order or structure to that. Mm-hmm. And so for me, it's about order and structure and setting a standard of how we want things to be operated. Because I do believe that God is a God of order and structure. It's biblically sound, and that we don't want to have to do things with God. And so if we have to go on, jobs that are not in ministry, there is a set standard, policy and procedures. And so I believe in that piece of administration, that you have to have policy and procedures and standards and order and structure. And you says, well, I'm just a small church and I can't do all this. Yes, you can start doing those things. Miss Debbie and Brittany can tell you well that once you do order and structure in administration, everything else seems to flow much smoother. And then if they hit a landmine, it's not so much that you're destroyed, but you can come out walking away with some, way of redeeming, what was done. And so my biggest thing and take is order and structure, policy and procedure, and letting them know that there's a certain standard, and we just don't do things any kind of way because we're watching kids. Because again, we're not babysitters, we are kids' disciples, and so we.
All right, don't start preaching now. Debbie, what do you think? When you think of administration, what do you think? What comes to mind?
So the thing that I know for me, what specifically comes to mind is, how do you run your business? How do you run your team? And so I know a lot of people will focus you think administration, you think of like the paperwork and the emails and the phone calls and that I'm sure we're going to talk about that because that is crazy important, and the communication, all things. But like overall, how do you run your business? What are in the details of your business, just like Cynthia was talking about, the order of the business, but really focusing in on the details, all of those details. For example, there might be a doctor who's a great doctor, but what kind of practice, when you walk into his office, what does it feel like? What kind of environment does he have? How are the people how are his staff? How do they work together? That's so important. Same thing as chef. There could be an amazing chef, but they open up a restaurant, but they have a horrible atmosphere and environment because they're so focused on this one part, like the chef, but it's about all of the things together. And so I think sometimes as kids ministry directors, we're so focused on, which of course is great. We're telling people about Jesus, telling our kiddos about Jesus, but also thinking about the team that does it as well. And how are we leading them? And what kind of environment are we setting? So I think of administration as all of that is, how are you leading your ministry? How are you leading your business?
That is so good. Brittany, what do you think? Chime in on this. What do you think of when you think of administration in children's ministry?
Sure. Well, first I get all excited because like I said, I love administration. So I'm like, oh, yay, we get to talk about this, because it's not the most exciting thing people like to talk. Like most people are like, oh, great, we have to talk about administration. So I'm a little bit weird in that sense. But I love two of the things that Debbie and Cynthia said, and with Cynthia about the standards, I think is really important. And I love, Debbie, that you talked about the organizational structure and like the culture of your ministry. And I really think administration is kind of like building a trellis for your vine, right? Like a vine is something that grows and flourishes, and if when left on its own can kind of go all over the place. And I think children's ministry feels like that sometimes, right? A little bit of organized chaos. But when you construct that trellis, it gives it the structure, and it gives it the organization and the strength and the stability to be able to flourish and grow in a healthy way. And so I feel like that's what administration does for our ministries. It gives it that structure. It gives it the policies and procedures and the paperwork, yes, but also, like Debbie said, the culture and the environment of our team. It creates that structure that allows our ministry to flourish.
I love it. I love it. I mean, hey, if you are watching, what do you think of when you think of administration in children's ministry? Share with us in the chat box. I'm going to confess to all of you, one of the reasons I really wanted to do this webinar is because it's an area that I have struggled in going into children's ministry. I would never forget, people are like, oh my goodness, Esther, you're so enthusiastic. The kids love you. And I'm like, man, yeah, that's right. The kids love me. And I got so excited about that. But this was such an important element. And I love when you said that, Cynthia, like you have been blown up by some minds before. Like that is exactly what happened to me when I first joined children's ministry. Yes, I was fun. I was exciting. I had the whole enthusiastic part in terms of being a children's pastor. But this important skill of having that administrative side really tight was definitely lacking in what I was doing. So for those who are listening today, share with us, ladies, because I believe that we make such an emphasis, right, on we need to make God's word come alive so that we can effectively reach children with the gospel of Jesus Christ. And we emphasize this in children's ministry. And of course, this is important. But why is having the administrative skills tight and on lock just as important in children's ministry? Brittany, I'm going to let you start.
Yeah. I mean, it allows us to be good stewards of the time, the resources, the people on our team. Like having good administration allows us to use the resources that God has blessed us with well. And so that we don't squander them, so that we don't waste them, so that we don't waste our team's time or our, valuable resources. Because I mean, Lord knows children's ministry budgets are not the biggest things, right? And so when we have good administration and when we're organized, we're able to make sure that we use all of those resources wisely, and that we're able to do it for kingdom work that's both effective and efficient at the same time.
Love it. Love it. Cynthia.
Well, I did see in the chat, someone says, and I just wanted to kind of brush go on that. It says, coming from a small church means I have to wear different hats, and sometimes administration part comes in last. I would recommend to make administration come first. And so if you make administration come first, then wearing the different hats come easier. And some of that has to do with building a structure of, a team, building the team. That's part of administration. And so building that team, that means volunteer recruitment or some type of recruitment or building staff. And then you can take off one of those hats and give it to one of those team members. And so that administration piece won't be last. So with that, is oftentimes we do put administration last, sometimes. And oftentimes and then we get so bogged down as children's ministry directors because we're running around doing all kinds of things and we did not set the structure in place. And so for me, it's going in as a children's ministry director I went in and first of all, I looked at the team. How many is on the team? Who's a part of the team? Who is need to be, and this is a hard decision. Some people are meant to be led out of the team, into other ministries, because it's not to say that God doesn't, their season may be up. And so you have to see first what's your team, and then you go from them building. I did an organizational chart, just like a business like Debbie. I thought about it as running the business. I did my org chart. I put on there my staff, who's going to be staff, who's going to be volunteers, and gave them clear, defined direction and tasks to do and oversee particular areas. And then I start building more things in administration. So in the person in the chat, I recommend sit down, look at it from an administrative standpoint first. Let that be first instead of letting that be last.
All right, so I'm gonna throw a curveball in here. So it's for the person who is watching. I know you ladies can handle this, but the person who's watching, who's like, I struggle when it comes to teams. It's hard for me to build a team. What are some building blocks to doing that? Because I know that I really want to make sure that we help everyone who comes on here, and I know that we come from all different sizes, and that can be hard. I've been in positions where I come in, oh man, the team is already set, and I'm like, thank you, Jesus, I am blessed. And I've also come in with a skeleton crew, so it's hard to kind of give that away. It's a skeleton crew. There's no one to give it away to. How encourage the person who's listening when it comes, if they're in that situation.
Can I take this one?
Yes.
Okay, so I have been I've been in small churches, I've been in large churches, multi-campus churches, and I will tell you. So first of all, before I talk about this recruitment, is you're not going to grow unless you have this administration down, unless you have this set. So you're going to stay a small church. You're going to stay a small kids ministry unless you get this down. So if you want to grow, you need to get this right. Yeah. But as far as getting, you're wanting volunteers and you're needing to grow and you're needing to start, it starts with relationship. Relationship with people all around you. Start within your circle. Relationship with the people that are on your team, and look at your ministry. So you're going to look inside. Does your ministry look attractive? Do people want to be? Does it look like? Do you look needy? Maybe you really are needy, because Lord knows we're kids ministry. We're always needy. We always need more volunteers. I don't care how big you are. You never have enough volunteers. Never, ever, ever. Yeah. But don't appear to be needy. It's a privilege to serve on my team.
Yes.
I don't need a warm body. I need someone who loves these kids. I need someone who's committed to it, and you set those standards. And I would rather do ministry with just a few that are really strong than having a bunch of warm bodies that really don't care about their, just to fill that up. So don't look needy. Make your ministry attractive. That's what I want to recommend.
But Debbie, to add to you, because we can tag team, is that, are you a nurse person?
Am I a what?
Are you the leader? You can't be asking for team people on your team, and you're a nasty person.
Oh, yeah.
You have to be.
Debbie, you're not the nasty person.
No, not you. But I'm saying, as the team, just like you're saying, we said needy. Sometimes we come across as needy and nasty people. So what are we portraying?
Yeah.
What are we?
Yeah.
Are we our Esther? Are we acting, are we going like, we need another volunteer?
Yeah.
Doom and gloom.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, we don't have enough. We can't do it because we still don't have enough people.
To go, yes.
Yeah. What do you have? What potential do you have and just like, yeah, let that creativity flow.
I
Yes.
love it.
I'm sorry. I'm
it.
excited like you, Brittany, when it comes down to administrative. That's my
Yes.
favorite.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm kind of like a fine wine. I'm like an acquired taste. So I will say some people are I am off-putting to some people with my energy level. And I see it. I can tell when people are kind of throwing up in their mouth because they're more of a eloquent type of
But you know
please,
what?
no, I do not want to volunteer in your ministry. You annoy me.
but the thing about it is, I've seen children's ministry departments and areas and where the leader is horrible. Their attitude is horrible. They're not nice people. And then you're talking about you want people to serve and you want to build a team. Well, what are you portraying as a leader? Are you making you? Are you inviting?
Right.
Are you saying that? You can get administration. We're going to get that. But what are you coming across? Are you excited for the kids? Or you as a person, you want people to be a part. Every time I see you, I want to be connected to whatever you do because you give that energy, that excitement. And I would never known that administration may be something that you struggle with. But as me, I'm going to recruit team people to build this team to do a better administration. I got to show something.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so sometimes we have to check ourselves in this process of being administrative leaders. Because everybody, just because you said you're a director, does not mean you'll be called. You just may be holding a position.
Amen. Hey, so I want to move on to this because I think that this is really important, and this is always my favorite part that I never wanted to confess when I started children's ministry in my platform because I wanted to act like I was perfect. I thought it was good for business, but share with us a major administrative faux pas, okay, that you guys have made and what you learned from that. Brittany, start us off.
Yeah. So all of my faux pas have to do with the budget because money, like administration is my gift, but I don't count budgeting as part of administration, even though it really is, just because I'm terrible at it. Like even in our home, my husband is the one who handles the money and like he looks at prices of things and I don't. He's like, oh, how much did you spend? And I'm like, I don't know, like we got what we needed, like it's fine. So yeah, so most of my faux pas have all been from overspending on the budget. And one year specifically was when we kind of had to change plans with our VBS. So our church at the time was a mobile church. So we met in a local high school. So we did not have our own building. We did not have our own space. And we were using the high school over the summer as well for our VBS. And then like a month before our VBS was planned and was like supposed to happen, the school called us and said, hey, we're going to be doing some construction this summer. So you can't use our space. And so I was like, okay, so let's shift, like, let's do something else. And so we did kind of this like field trip type VBS where we did different activities every day and all tied it in to the Great Commission. And it turned out and like, it was amazing. But in my panic of, oh, we don't have a space now, I was just like, you know what? Ask forgiveness, not permission, and just buy it all. And so
that's my motto in life.
I spent way too much money. I went way over our budget, and it ended up cutting into some of the things that I had planned for later on in the year, right? Because I had to make some adjustments in other places. So our back to school event had to be much smaller. Our Christmas event had to be much smaller. And so I really learned that, like, sure, it was a quick fix in the moment of let's figure out what VBS is going to look like now that we don't have a physical place to go. But it hurt me in the long run because I wasn't able to do some of the other things that I wanted to do well. We had, like I said, we really had to cut back on some things. We really had to slow down some of the initiatives and some of the things that we had planned. We had to push off until the next year. And so that was one of the biggest administrative faux pas, is not sticking to my budget and not thinking about it and keeping it in mind and trying. And like, when I say I went over budget, it wasn't like a couple $100. Like it was significant.
It was over.
It was over my budget. Like my senior pastor had to sit me down. Like we had to very difficult conversation. And so, yeah, that's budgets.
So budgets matter. Knowing how to
Yeah.
manage that.
Mhm.
Cynthia, what is a huge faux pas that you made?
Well, policy and procedure is always good to have in place.
Mm.
It's always good to follow and read the city policy and procedure. Cynthia did not. Well, she ignored it. Maybe that's the better answer. And so we were having one of our kids' festival, and of course, in the city of Dallas, you must have a city permit. And you know how oftentimes it's on our church property. You know, they can't tell us what to do. Well, Cynthia did not do what she's supposed to. And the special events coordinator for the city came, asked us for a permit, and shut us down. Major faux pas. So, you know, I had to run around and go like, praise the Lord, everybody. We're so happy. And, you know, things happen and God is wonderful. Now let's give this candy out to the kids on your way out the door in the parking lot. But we'll be back Sunday. But it was embarrassing for me because I did not follow procedure. Mm-hmm. So my landmine of things is when you do major events, please find out what the policies and procedures and the rules of the city that you're in, because that does affect. That's very to know that just because, and again, oftentimes we work in ministry, serve in ministry, and we says, oh, God's kingdom, we don't have to follow, man's rule. But the Bible do says we obey the laws of the land. I did not obey the law of the land. I missed it. And so you have to find out those things. You said, we're just a small church. We don't need it. But it's important because you don't know, even in a small church, you having that outside gathering may be infringing on a policy or ordinance of that city. And so don't do like I do. So if you have something major outside, please find out what's going on with the city and make sure that you're following the policy and procedures. But no, that was not good. I'm like Brittany. I had to sit down with the pastor and said, going forward, you can get you some help if you don't seem like you can get that done or taken care of. And it was a slap in the hand, but it was lesson learned. So this year and the next following years, the policy is already in hand for our Harvest Fest, so we're good. So I keep copies in my backpack when I'm walking, so in case somebody comes. So just knowing what your city, because just because it's your rules in your church does not mean that you need to not be governed by your city rules. Well.
I love it. I love it. Debbie, let us know. I mean, you seem to be the perfect leader. I don't know if you've had any faux pas.
I've done what Brittany has done. I've done what Cynthia. Well, Cynthia, I was actually 24 hours in, like begging the city officials to like get me a permit, which I was able to do within 24 hours. But I had a close call, so I've been there, done that. I have a couple, but I decided which one I'm going to share. Mine has to do with we talked about setting standards, but when we fail to hold our team members accountable to those standards. And so what had happened was I had a set of leaders, a husband and wife that was in charge of one of our kids, our elementary age area, and amazing couple, so wonderful. They led their elementary team. However, they had an issue of tardiness. Always tardy. They would be in the building, and it wasn't like they were being like trying to just be not taking responsibility. They're just super friendly. And so they would walk in the building. It would take them like a half an hour just to get in the building because they're talking to everybody in the parking lot as they come through, or they're just chatting it up and high-fiving kids, and they're doing everything. And by the time it was, they were getting into their classroom so late, and their team is just standing there going like, I don't know what we're supposed to do today. Our leaders aren't here to tell us, I guess we're good. And, things weren't fully set up, or, so they're trying their best to get everything ready. And week after week, I'm seeing this, and I would just kind of, you guys get in your room. I would just kind of just be a little flippant about it. However, what was happening is the longer I ignored this behavior, their team started to pick up the same behavior as their leaders. And so before long, what we were having is it was time for that classroom to open, and there were no leaders in the room. They were in the building, but they were down getting coffee or doing something else. And because I was flippant about that standard, those standards no longer, they knew that those standards meant and did not mean anything. And so by the time I did go in and I had to sit them down and say, hey, first of all, I was wrong that I did not call you out on this earlier. And I take that. I was wrong. But look what has happened because I didn't. Look at what has happened. And so it ended up where they had to then go in and apologize to their team for not, and then had to really work really hard to be consistent, to earn back their team's trust, for their team to start following them. So because I chose not to have, it wasn't even that difficult of a conversation, but because I was just like, they're just being friendly. No, being friendly is one thing, but we also have to keep those standards going, or the rest of the team is just going to think they don't mean anything.
Wow. That is so good. You guys, I see a question in this chat box. It says, this has not happened to me, but I have a question on how to handle situations that could cause a lawsuit. How do you handle someone potentially getting hurt, a volunteer not doing something correct or discipline? Have any of you faced something difficult like this and your paperwork saved you?
Well, you can break this up in so many different ways.
Yeah.
And so the first part is how do you, this has not happened to me, but I have a question on how to handle a situation that could cause a lawsuit. First and foremost, if you set, and we have it, SOP, which is a standard operation procedure manual across the board. We have had that set, approved by our pastor and guidelines. Now we have guidelines set. So anytime you have an insurance company or attorneys, and when lawsuits happen, then in those lawsuits, oftentimes it states that you can kind of not say get away with it, but you have more on your side, that you have did every precaution to keep from the situation happening. And so there has to be a set standard, has to be something given to across the board to all your leaders or volunteers, so that they can already know, train on that, so that you can so you can get yourself out of those situations or not be a part of those situations. Now, as for someone getting hurt, it all depends on whether you're talking about getting hurt. If you're talking about a kid getting hurt, where you have a nurse, we have a nurse every service, a registered RN that's on our staff, that's part of service. Do you have incident reports? Do you have an attorney? We have an attorney, which is, we're fortunate as a church that's a mega church that we can have that will take care of those things for us. So it depends on what you have set in place, what you don't have set in place, and maybe talking to someone of legal counsel to be able to set those, so that you don't worry about those things that are taking place legally, but there's a department or administration that take care, and you move those things to that department. So if I were that person, and if I was a smaller church, I would get with my pastor or executive level and say, what do we have in place for these mechanisms, so that we can shift these things instantly? Because again, we're children's ministry people, and our job is not to do all the legal things, but our job is to make sure that there is someone who, if there's something legally, they have the documents, they have the know-how, and they know how to go to court to take care of that. And that's not our job to do.
Yes. And I'll say too, if you are waiting for that situation to happen before you set those policies and procedures in place, then you're waiting too long. Like, you want to have these things set up, have that operations manual set up before anything happens, so that you have the default method, the person that you call that you can pass it off to, like Cynthia said, so that it's not something that you have to shoulder and you have to burden. My husband is a full-time youth pastor, and so we have had several students on our trips as we were playing field games and stuff who have gotten hurt or broken an arm even. And so, like, having those policies and procedures in place, he knows exactly what he needs to do. He has the students' information, contact information for the parents, like completely easily accessible, ready to grab whenever he needs it for all of those trips, like even down to his supply list for his med kit that he brings on every trip with him. Like he's got that structure in place so that when something does happen, he knows exactly what he needs to do to be able to handle it and to be able to handle it well.
And to add to Miss Brittany is that in that standard operation manner, go to your church ministry and find out what is your insurance policy as well, so that you can be prepared and know what's to take place. Because there's some things as a church ministry, you have to be covered in your kids' ministry. And so you need to have that policy if you can. For me, I have our actual policy. And so I know where we're covered, where we're not covered in, and what needs to take place. And so that's information as a leader and director. So you can know, like Brittany's husband, so in case there's a trip or something goes on, you have that along with it and those permission forms and those things that you have to sign off. And we're here, all four of us is, if you need to connect, we can get you those kind of resources if you don't know or need a template to be able to do those things.
I love that. Debbie, springboard us on this next question. I really want us to get into, what do you think is one of the biggest mistakes that we make when it comes to administration in children's ministry?
I think there's a lot of mistakes that we make, but I think one of the biggest mistakes that we make in ministry is a lot of children's directors, they fail to instill ownership in the people around them. And I think that because they feel like it's like, I have to do this, I have to be the one to take care of this, and they don't tap into the people's strengths that are around them, that's how we drop things. That's how we lose out on things. That's how we, because we do carry the burden all on us, and we feel like we have to carry the burden. You go back into the Bible, and Moses, he was like, oh, I have all these people to take care of, and I have all these things I have to listen to. And it was his father-in-law that said, dude, you got people around you that can help you with this. And so we have to be the ones to instill ownership in them. And so when they had so I think that is probably one of the biggest things that we do. I could go on and on and on, but I think that's one of the biggest.
Yeah, that is so good. Cynthia, what do you think is one of the biggest mistakes that we make when it comes to administration? What do you think?
Oftentimes we don't think it could happen to us. And so we have the realization is, okay, I'm not going to worry about background checks because that's not going to happen to us. I'm not going to worry about putting a policy and procedure because it's not going to happen to us, because we're a small church, or we're this family church, or we're this. And we don't put the mechanisms in place. All those things are just in case. You prepare for the worst and hope for the best. Always want the best. And so we always, as leaders, we don't think it could happen to us. And so we have to get to the realization that I need to pre-think this just in case it may happen to us. Again, I'm at all to understand that many churches still don't do background checks for their kids' ministry. And so, and there's many church ministries, they ask, well, why? I know this person because we grew up together, or a family church, but the Bible says, know those that labor among you. And that's including your own family and friends or anybody. And that helps you when that question, if that lawsuit comes about and something do happen, you as a church did everything possible to not have the situation happen. And so my biggest thing is, as a leader, and just believe that, and just know that just because you plan it does not necessarily mean on the moment it's going to happen the way you plan it. Because oftentimes we'll plan it down to a T. And how many of us leaders know that the moment the event, the Sunday service, the Wednesday, it does not come out. Don't sweat it.
Can I say something to tag on to Cynthia before we jump over to Brittany? And it kind of goes with the last question that got up. You said you never think it's going to happen to you. The last church I was in, we never thought it would happen to us. When you have your manual, that is not just a piece of a document that you just throw around and, oh yeah, we have a manual, we're good. Follow it, follow the ratios, get the background checks, do the abuse training, do all of the things. Y'all, we almost lost our whole entire church because of situations, and it is the most difficult thing to navigate through. So it can happen to you no matter how big you are, no matter how small you are. So like what you were saying, you never think it's going to happen to you, and like what Brittany you were saying, like don't wait for something to happen. Yes. Please do it now.
Do it now. You heard it here, you guys.
Do it now. Yes.
Brittany.
Yes. So I think my answer is very similar to Debbie's, and the most common mistake is that we think we have to do it all by ourselves. We think we have to shoulder the entire administrative burden on our own. When really, like, we need to be inviting a whole team. We need to be inviting other people to be part of it. I can guarantee there's someone in your church who is nerdy like me and likes organization and loves their label maker and wants to come in and help you sort things or work through the budget or, draft your operations manual. And so inviting other people into that. And I think kind of another one, since Debbie did hit on that one, is assuming that everyone has the same perspective as we do, or assuming that something doesn't need to be said. So I think a lot of times we think, oh, well, we don't need a policy for diapering because of course, like everyone knows it should go for, go XYZ. And I think a lot of times when we assume that everyone has the same thoughts and perspective on things, that's when it can get us into trouble because people have very different opinions and ideas about how things work and how things run. And so when you have that operations manual and those policies in place, it can knock out some of the assumptions or the different expectations that people have.
Yeah, I love it. So you guys, I'm throwing some curveballs here, and I see a question in the chat box that I really want to get to because I think that it is super important when it comes to conflict in teams because that is something that definitely happens. And I don't always read a lot of long, thick policy booklets. I might sign up to be a part of something, and they hand me this really thick packet, and I'm like, yeah, man, that is amazing. And I have all intentions of reading this very thick packet, and sometimes it kind of ends up, I don't know how, and under my daughter's bed. So for those of us who are watching, and okay, we're coming up with these policies, we want everyone to get on board. We're living in a digital age. Do you have any recommendations on how we can ensure and help that these policies are, that the message is actually getting to the people we need it to get to?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Brittany. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. There's a ton of resources. Like Canva is a fantastic resource for creating beautifully formatted documents. But then beyond that, we have so many resources available. You can do text messages to your team. You can do video reminders. You can do obviously emails. And I think too, I would say a lot of times we think we have to like force feed all of our policies and procedures all at once in one training event, but you don't have to. Like you can give a little nugget here and there throughout the year during ongoing training to equip your team and remind them of those policies and procedures. And one of the things that we did was we created a top 10 expectations list, or like a top 10 list of what we wanted our volunteers to know. And so, yes, they got that like 40-page, like volunteer training handbook, but I would always tell them, hey, please read through this. But if you don't, read this page, read these top 10 expectations that outlined the top 10 things that they needed to know about serving with our ministry. Tons of resources to make things kind of bite-sized as opposed to, fire hose of information with your volunteers, and moving beyond just, we only talk about policies and procedures during training. No, you can talk about it year round. You can talk about it all the time. Every time you interact with a volunteer can be an opportunity to train them and remind them of something, even if it's saying, hey, thanks for showing up on time. The positive affirmation communicates your expectations with your team.
I would never forget. I'll be honest with you, Brittany. I will never forget when our leader had a talk with us about bringing in hot coffee You know, we have this packet, and I'm like, man, these are a lot of letters here, and it's going past my attention span. But because he said we have to be really careful with hot coffee around the kids, that always stayed with me. So now I sneak and have hot coffee behind the front desk. But I know that you are not supposed to do it, Debbie. Don't judge me.
But I will never judge you. I will never judge you. Brittany, I love that you put the top 10 in a document. I love that. Yeah. So one of the things that that I just recently did is we took our top policies and we actually created a video, just a short video that had me actually explaining, hey, these are the top things that we just want you to remember. And then of course, here's the policy as well. The last church I was at, we actually had a series of videos that explained policies and procedures, but also explained like standards within the classroom and different things. And it was like a library of videos that they could go to and watch and see. I know that's a pretty big project, but it's definitely, something that you could do. There's we could do that kind of stuff with our iPhones now. So it doesn't have to be like, produced like super awesome, like, high quality, but at least, it gives them something they might not read, but they'll watch something on their phone.
I love it.
And from us, if you is that I do a combination of the policy book and the videos, but for us a little bit different. I don't just give them a top 10 and just remember these. We have to get them to sign off because it's crucial. I go back to it can never happen to us.
Yes.
They have to tell us that they have gone through it and maybe do a test on some of that because in case something happens and there's a suit, I have to definitely, as an administrator, know that our people were given the information. They went through the and they understood the information. And so that's one of those standards for us is that during orientation and then training, for us, it's a must. Some kind of way you have to do it by video or by book. And so that's one of those standards as a Kingdom Servant Leader volunteer that I can't cut the standard on that for us in kids ministry because our kids are too important.
Yes.
And that I know, Miss Esther, you might say, well, I didn't get a chance to read it, but I got to some kind of way find out that you did read it by some kind of test or acknowledgement. Because
it forces people to level up. You have to level up. If you did that to me, I'd be like, "Oh man, I gotta take a test."
And we do that because again, at the end of the day, our kids are so precious and important that I can't lower the standard because it's church ministry. And then the school districts have to make their teachers and everybody do that same standard. We do in kids ministry. And again, from a liability standpoint, I know it seems cruel, but then that's how you get the best of your crop of your people who serving your kids. If you're willing to say, okay, I know that's a lot. Let me read, let me go through, and now I'm not saying that we do this all in one hit. I'm like, Brittany, it's in bite sizes, this video. But by the end of the year, you have completed whatever you need to. And it's a year training. So you go through kind of like a year training. You've completed. Then by the end of the year, you have completed. And then the next following year, it's just a refresher of things on the training. But you go through a year of that. But again, for us, it's a little bit different. I don't give them the top 10. Everything is a top for us.
So okay, so I want us to really paint a picture of what it looks like, when it comes to a children's ministry that is, operating, in a way that is very healthy administratively. But one of the benefits of being here live is you get to ask questions and we get to answer those. And I see a question, I don't want to miss it. And I think that is so important because it can be intimidating, to really jump in administratively and take ownership and try to get people to take ownership when you're dealing with conflict with teams. How we have a question here. I thought it was so good. Can you share thoughts on dealing with conflict within your teams? And you guys don't deal with no conflict.
Prayer.
Oh, we don't have conflict in my ministry.
Prayer. Wait, lots of prayer and coffee.
So I will say, I will say, first of all, you're not going to be able to deal with conflict if you don't have a relationship with the people on your team.
Mm.
You have to have relationships with these people. If you don't, you're not going to be able to resolve the conflict. So I think that is something that's so, so important. And don't ignore it. Don't just think, oh, if I just ignore it, it's going to go away. Guess it's not going to go away. It's gonna, what did you say? It's gonna be a mine or whatever. What did you say, Cynthia? What were you calling it?
Yeah, a landmine. Yeah.
Landmine.
Mhm.
It will just blow up your whole ministry, and it will just get bigger, and it will fester, and that conflict will go from 2 people to 4 to 8 to to 16. It will just keep going up. So I think so having that relationship and letting them both talk. I'm assuming, let's just come up with a scenario that we have 2 people, or maybe you are having, let's just do this one, like you are having specific conflict with a team member that won't, maybe they're choosing not to follow the standards, or maybe they're giving you a hard time, or maybe they're not complying to something, or they're they're giving you difficult time. But sitting down with that person and hear what they have to say, like and letting that be, and the other saying everything in love and but also not making sure that you say all of the things. And so I think sometimes we'll only say up to a certain point. But just allowing God to give you the grace to share all of the things. Like I'm going to talk about this, but I'm not going to talk about this much, because this is the really hard part, like the 97% of it, but the last 3%, which was the really most. And so that you still leave some lingering in the background. You have to deal with it. And at the end of the day, it's all about God and the ministry and just helping people to realize that we are different, and helping people to realize that we are not all gonna like each other. Maybe we're not all gonna get along. And there are some people on my team that I don't want to go to dinner with, but I can still love them. And there are some people on my team that I think they're awesome, but they're not my best friend. And that's okay. And I don't have to have that for us to still serve together.
Yeah.
We could go on and on. We could do a whole webinar about conflict.
Yeah.
But I always, with Miss Debbie, I have to agree. But I always, before I go in, if it's like you said, myself or somebody, before I start that conversation, it's always a time with the Lord, so I can know, listening to the Holy Spirit, how, because I don't know, it may be something going on with that person that's deep personal, that has nothing to do with me, but we're conflicting, and I need, as the leader, I have to, as a leader, I take the steps of being the lead. I don't expect that other person to be the one that apologizes or say something they're wrong. As a leader, even if I feel like I'm right and they're wrong, I need to be the one that, even if I have to come back and say, you know what, I apologize. I see your perspective. Though I may not agree with that, but I understand your perspective, and your truth is your truth. Yeah. It may not, and I respect your truth. And so in anything, it's about having, the first thing is having lesson. We teach that to our kids. We have to exemplify that. Yeah. Having that conversation, relationship with the Lord. Pray. Yeah. Let Him tell us how to do conflict resolution. Yeah. And then if it's people, let Him tell us conflict resolution. I pray about it. I have people, I had 2 people on my staff. They were, it was something about, believe it or not, mask. And they were arguing back and forth about it. One said, some didn't.
We believe it.
Yeah.
And
they were staff at it. And then I discovered, when they were in my office talking about it, I said, the Holy Spirit just dropped, because I was praying, and says it's deeper. It wasn't about the mask. It was about something totally different. Yeah. So I said, this is something totally different about versus these masks that y'all both arguing on 2 different planes. And I said, I'm going to walk away. Yeah. And whatever, I'm going to leave you in my office. Yeah. And then I'm going to let you guys hash it out, whatever it's this. No, it's not. And then finally, after about 15 minutes, they both came out, hugged, Kubana says, you're right. It wasn't about a mess. It was about, I didn't like that they didn't respect my opinion about something, and it
Yeah.
didn't go off something. So oftentimes it's the leading and guiding of the Holy
Yeah.
Spirit on how to handle the conflict, and not just jump in there and say, I'm just going to take over, and you're wrong, and this is how I want to do. Let the Holy
Cynthia,
Spirit lead
I
you.
have seen debates that have gone on between team members. I'm talking about a 10-year grudge over casseroles, over like breakfast egg casseroles. And I hate casseroles. And you had this at the Easter breakfast. 10 years, you know. So it's so important. So I love how you have to lean into the Holy Spirit, because oftentimes it's always something deeper that we're missing, even if that deepness is a egg casserole from 10 years ago. I want to really dig into the meat. You guys have come to hear about the do's and don'ts of administration and children's ministry. So I want to jump into, let's talk about a healthy, a church that is functioning in a way that is healthy administratively. What does that look like? What are they doing? Brittany, jump us into what is that church doing?
Yeah, well, first they have to have those policies and procedures in place, right? Like you have to have some administrative structure, but I think it goes beyond just having it and like setting it up. You have to communicate it because they really don't do any good if no one on your team knows that they exist. And so you got to communicate it, but then also enforce them. I love how Debbie has talked about this and her example about the leaders who were late, and she chose not to make a big deal about it, you know, and just how it snowballed a little bit and had lasting rippling effects. And so enforcing our policies, right? Like they're not just there to be pretty or like to be, you know, and be helpful in dire situations, but they're there for a reason, because they do give us that structure. So we have to enforce them. And I think also evaluating them, like things can change, and it's okay if things change. I think sometimes in ministry we have a hard time with changing things and changing things that are written down and that we've done for a while. And so, those would be the 4 things I would say. You've got to have it, you've got to communicate those policies and procedures, you've got to enforce them, and then a church has to evaluate them and go back and make sure that every season, every year, every couple of years, that there's still the policies and the administrative things that they have in place are still effective for their current context of ministry.
I love that, Brittany, making sure that you're relevant. You continue to be relevant to the community and the environment around us. Debbie, what does this look like? This healthy, operating, administratively, phenomenally.
My answer is very, very similar to Brittany's. You have to have clear communication, and an organization that will, when they see that the communication backs up, like if the communication stops, the organization takes the time to find out where the clog is, where did it stop, and then to find out like what's happening. Do we like evaluate your structure? Is it not working? Do we need to reevaluate how that is, or is there a person there that is just not doing their job properly? But just to take that time, that communication is so vital. But what Brittany said, I'm all about that. I love that.
Debbie is all about. Good job,
what
Brittany
said. What Brittany said, ditto.
Cynthia, what does it look like? What does a healthy operating children's ministry administratively look like? What are they doing?
A healthy, for me, if I see a healthy children's administration, is that I see children's ministry from the time I hit the parking lot to the lobby. So children's ministry does not begin in the building or area of children's ministry, but it begins from the time some kind of children's ministry presence, because children's ministry is not an all-center support service of the church ministry, but it's one of the legs on the chair of the church ministry. And if children's ministry is enthroned in every part of your ministry, from the main service doing something to honor our kids and children, to in the lobby you see something about our kids ministry, to the parking lot that you see something about kids ministry. To me, that's a healthy kids ministry, because the presence, we're not in the corner hiding somewhere to babysit kids, but we're part of the fabric from the whole beginning to the end of kids ministry, and it's not an afterthought. And you know how oftentimes we do our children's ministry as afterthoughts. And so healthy children's ministries are not healthy. Our senior pastor, when they're speaking about your children's ministry every Sunday, about something about that's a healthy children's ministry, because to me that senior pastor is wanting to put all their all and making that a vital focus. And I'm concerned about churches that the pastor does not put that effort in. And so my thing is oftentimes is this: we can put the fire in our youth, children's directors, and they can push it and everybody come. But if you have a senior pastor or lead pastor who is pushing and promoting, that's a healthy kids ministry pastor, because he knows the future of ministry. She knows the future of ministry, and that's a healthy kids ministry to me.
I love it. I love it. Oh, there's a question in the chat box. I want to get to advice on how to handle team communication who are all on different platforms.
Pick one platform and utilize it as that's the standard for all your volunteers or kingdom servants. In other words, if you're doing your teams, like for instance, we have several. We have a church management system that we use, and we have one that's our communication mode. But we do have this Facebook, Instagram, and social media for communication outside the church ministry. Inside the church ministry for our communication to our teams, we use one platform, and that's the standard. There we go back, Miss Debbie, right? A standard. And so when you start to having everyone on your team do something totally different, somebody's going to use Facebook Messenger, some are going to use text and email. Pick one. And so that's our standard, and that's what we're going to do. Or two, whatever those two. Text message and email. That's what you're going to get your communication through. And you as a leader have to set the standard. Don't let everybody else set the standard.
And they're great. You guys, there are great apps out there. I see a lot of teams use GroupMe. Something super convenient where everybody gets a message, whether you are on, because it's true. You have people who are on Facebook who are not on Facebook. They're on Instagram. You have people who are Instagram that are, they're not in the Twitter. And these people, you have a whole community on Twitter where that Twitter is where they're at. They're not on Facebook. They're not on Instagram. And don't get me started on Snapchat. So because of that, things like GroupMe makes it very convenient to go on that and to do that. And hey, praise God if you have the time to build 50,000 platforms on all of them. But if you don't, there's so many things and avenues. But I love GroupMe. But you guys, before we get out of here, I want to ask a quick question for those who are watching or who may be watching later, who are like, I suck administratively. Come on, we say things like that. I stink at it. I want to be good. Everything that you're saying is great, and I'm a little overwhelmed on exactly where to get started. Give us some advice on some building blocks on what is the first step? How can we take little bites of the elephant if this is an area that we're weak in? Debbie.
There's several things. I think one resource that I saw that was really good. If you're really like needing to start from the very, very beginning, I wish I had it with me. I actually lent it to another kids pastor, and I didn't get it back. I didn't buy another copy. It's by Carl Bastian, and I think it's called the tool, something about it, the toolkit, the Kidman. What is it, Brittany? What is it?
The toolbox. Yes.
Yeah,
I have it
and
somewhere.
It is. I was like, I'm like, I know I have it. Like, oh no, I forgot. I gave it to a fellow kids pastor to help them when they're at a brand new church, and it literally takes you like if you're just like, I don't even know where to start. Yeah, it literally takes you step by step by step, and every single thing that all of us have been talking about today. It is all covered, and it's just a beautiful tool, and it's not that expensive. You can get it on kidology.com or kidology.org. I think you might even be able to get it on Amazon.
I love a lot of, if you go to kidology.org, I love a lot of Carl's stuff. And one of my favorite things about his stuff is a lot of it, you can access it digitally. So if you're like, I need this now, a lot of those resources are available in digital copies.
Yeah. So that I think that right there would be a really good resource. If you just are from the ground and you just don't even know where to begin, I think that would be a great resource to start.
Cynthia, what do you think?
I think you should find a person that you connect with and be that person can be your mentor. So you can bounce that off. It's always good. I agree with Debbie. The books, Carl's books is wonderful because I have all his books as well. But it's something about having someone who's done this for many years, like Debbie and Brittany and myself, that you can connect with, build a relationship, and you can call at any given time. You can email, and then they can connect you and walk you through. It's nothing like being on a lonely road, us leaders, and we can feel lonely as well. It says no one really understand how to be a kids leader. And so for me, I have a mentor. Her name is Dr. Elizabeth Canning. She's one of the top in the country. I call her in a moment's notice. I'll call her by email, and that's how I'm calling her. And do you know, she does not sweat about it. She doesn't. She says, okay. She's very calm. And she's done this so many years that she knows by experience and being there and written and training, and that she can help you. It's nothing like having somebody who can co-labor and walk along with you to say, okay, let me walk you through writing a template. Let me walk you through a policy. Let me help you as well. Because it's nothing like I can read Cole stuff. But it's something like I wrote it and give and said, Brittany, can you read that and tell me if that's okay? Is that, or Debbie, what you think? Nah, Debbie could say, no, I don't think that's good. So I say, see if you find somebody, one of us. I mean, I'm not trying to answer, but I am putting them out there. But
recommending that? Is she starting a coaching program through all of that?
But I'm just saying, find.
I'm in.
Yeah, and that you never know. We might have, Esther, you might have started something that for a period of time, and that's not forever. But sometimes you need somebody to walk alongside you for a few months or a year, or a couple of years, and then you'll feel like you're not alone, even in your crazy thoughts of doing things.
Yeah, I love it. Someone asked, they wanted to know what was the resource by Carl, and I believe it's called Toolbox. I responded, but I don't know if it's responding to a different platform. So I wanted to say that it's called Toolbox. And also, I love when you guys get involved and you share your resources. I see someone has shared Basecamp is a good app for ministry. So if you don't have Basecamp, be looking that up. We are all here to grow together. I've never heard of Basecamp, but guess what? I always come with a pen so that I can write stuff down.
I wrote it down.
Yep.
Yeah, I got my notes too.
Yeah, I wrote it down.
Typing my notes.
We're all learning from
I wrote
each
down
other.
what
I'm
Debbie said. And
I know,
wrote down what
Brittany,
Brittany
that's
said.
good.
I'm taking
Brittany
lots of
types
notes
hers
tonight.
out. But Brittany will be proud of me because I've upgraded from a paper napkin, which is where I used to be. So how about those apples there? But I really do. As we're preparing to leave out, I'm so blessed and honored that you guys are here with us today so that we can, this is what this is about. It is about us growing together, picking topics. If you have a topic that you want to talk about in children's ministry, put it. You may be surprised. We'll have a whole webinar and we will talk about those things because we are all about growing together. But leave those ladies and I want to start Brittany with you, Cynthia, and then Debbie. I want you to close out. Leave those who are watching just with an encouraging word that God may have put on your heart when it comes to administration.
Yeah, I would say that yes, administration is a spiritual gift, and so some of us are going to get more excited about it than others. But it's also a skill set and a muscle, which means it can be learned. It can be improved on. It can be strengthened. And so even if you're feeling like you don't have any idea and about where to start or what to do or how to get going, like be encouraged that you can move forward with administration and being better at administration. It's not something that like, if you just can't do it, oh, well, good luck. It is something that can be improved on and can be worked on. So there's hope. If you feel like you're terrible at it, you can improve.
you can improve and have a successful children's ministry.
Yes.
Cynthia.
Yes.
I ditto what Brittany is saying, and
Yeah.
and I agree. I also want to say to that person or anyone who will listen later,
Mhm.
if you were at a point where you were going to quit, do not quit.
Mhm. I
This
love
is
it.
not the time nor the season. The enemy wants you to think that you can't do this or you're not equipped or qualified. If us four ladies want to tell you, do not quit.
Yes.
You will win if you don't give up.
Yep.
And so my words to you is do not quit. Do not quit. Call someone before that comes, but this is not for you to even get on this jump call. That must mean that it's destined for you to be able to do this. And so I ditto Miss Brittany. This is not for you to even get on this jump
I
call.
love it. I love it. Debbie, leave us with some
You
final
know,
words.
I think we have all seen here that we have realized that the enemy is in the details, and it's those things that we had that we struggle with sometime are those details, and that's where he tries to get his stronghold. And just in remembering that we are taking ground.
Yeah.
And that just makes the enemy so angry. And so he is going to look for all of those little places that he can just squeeze himself in to be able to try to take you out. But God put you in the position you are in for a reason. And I'm sure you've heard this before. We've all had times, but maybe you need to be reminded of this. I know I have had someone recently have to remind me, because no matter how many years you've been in the ministry, whether you're new or whether you've been in for years, sometimes you just need to be reminded, it is not an accident that you have been put in the position that you are in right this very moment. And it is hard. What you are doing is not for the lighthearted. And what an honor that you get to lead his ministry where you are. And if he did that, if he put you there, he is not going to let you fail. You just keep clinging to him, and you just keep running back to him, and you are going to do that. I love everything that Cynthia said and what Brittany said about, having people on your team. Oh my goodness. Yes. You got this. You've got this.
I love it. I love it. Debbie, I'm going to put you on the spot. I'm so honored that all of you have joined us and to spend this time with us. Debbie, will you close us out in prayer and just pray over our leaders?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Dear God, wow. What an amazing opportunity that we have to join together here, Lord, to talk about the ministries that you have allowed us to have. God, you've allowed us to take the faux pas that we've had and all the don'ts that we have went through, and we have been able to learn from them, but then also to help pull up other directors and people in the ministry that are, Lord, about to go through them, or that are maybe struggling or that need a little bit of help. And so, God, I just pray over every single person that is watching this right now, over the ones that are going to be watching this in the near future. God, I just pray that you will just be all over their ministry and just encourage them and love on them. And God, I pray that you will give each and every one of them that special person that will be able to come alongside of them, and Lord, help them to realize that they don't have to do this alone. God, I thank you for Esther, Lord. Just keep blessing her and what she does, and Lord, that she will just multiply her ministry even more. In your precious name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Oh man, it was so good. I know that you guys got something out of this evening. Such an amazing time. Don't forget to join us next month. You guys, ladies, next month we are talking about delegation. For some people, they're like,
yeah, I was horrible at it.
that was probably the hardest lesson I've ever had to learn, was delegation. So Brittany, you're there too? Brittany, you're too? Yeah, that's hardest thing.
We're going to talk about it, guys, and we're going to let you do our questions, and we're going to answer all those questions. It's going to be an amazing time. So don't forget to be with us next month. Ladies, thank you so much for hanging out, for pouring out all of the wisdom on all of us. You are such an incredible blessing to us all. I see people saying, awesome, awesome, awesome. Someone has shared delegation is one of their gifts. Which means you have to come on and share your
Bless
wisdom
you.
next month with everybody. But we will see you guys next month, same time, same place.